to be together, if we had to stand united against a government that was not, that we didn't agree with, it made us very united. At the same time, I will say that it segregated the races. Yeah.
What about you, David? She was saying how much Durban feels like Goa. Now you've come obviously from Kampala and you've arrived maybe 48 hours ago. Is it 72 hours ago, something like that? But the moment David arrived, he said, "I know these buildings, I know these trees."
Yeah.
How has it been? So let's hear straight off the airplane. How does it feel?
I get off the airplane and have to do a double take. Okay, this is not Mombasa. This is Mombasa. This is not Mombasa. Down to the viaduct. You're getting out. The way the traffic is flowing, over the creek. And then the shacks on the roadside. I mean, I could be in Kileleshwa. I could be in Majengo, in Mombasa. But landscape will always be landscape. It's what the people have done, the built environment, the way the pillars are arching. And it's almost like the buildings that are built well are built the same way, and those built badly are built the same way. And I knew it before it happened. I walked the street and I smelled the same food. I'm walking with Vivek. We just met a few minutes, and I'm already like, I know this place. I know what's behind there before I've even walked there. And it does something to you, because this happened to me when I came to Mombasa. I've been coming to Mombasa on and off for more than 20 years. But last year, I really decided to come to Mombasa twice and to stay. Walked through every street, cycled through every street, and began sketching. And that's when I began to realize that it isn't just the landscape. It isn't just there's a commonality of the history, but it's what this period did to people, and it's what this ocean, this is it that? No, it's not. Which side is it? There's
the
Arabian
Sea.
Sea.
It's that way.
What that ocean did to people, Mombasa, as I began to look at it, and I'm sure this happened in Durban. Certainly it must have happened in Goa. But this was a place where people just didn't come to be subjects of the empire. People had their agency of remaking themselves, and you could almost see a new ethos being born, a kind of, oh God, why am I saying this? A kind of United Nations before the United Nations. But like you described the experience in Durban. One interesting thing happens in Kenya. This didn't happen in Uganda, and I regret it forever. But in Kenya, when you talk about the struggle for independence, okay, you're going to have Kikuyu names, you're going to have Kijaluo names, but you're going to have Goan names. People still talk about Gama Pinto and what he did to fight for independence in Kenya. People talk about D'Souza and what he did with Constitution, and so many lawyers doing this and that and that, and the kind of post-independence politics in Uganda kind of makes you scratch your head and, okay, who was lying to me about who people really are and what they did? There was apartheid light in Kenya. But there was also a very, very strong European settlerist politics. They wanted to grab everything. They wanted to have everything for themselves. And I think, in a way, that united everybody else who wasn't white. Not everybody was united, but the leading lights were. I mean, whenever you look at pictures of Jomo Kenyatta, of Tom Mboya, or Jaramogi Odinga, these names you'll always see Gama Pinto there. He's part of the foursome, you want to put it that way? So yeah, that's there, and that's a fact. And that is something which I want to find out, why did it not happen in Uganda? I know of course it happened, but there's a picture of, there's a picture.
Why don't you walk us through the pictures?
It's not very good. Yeah, let me do that. Okay, okay. Okay, just back a bit. I will not talk about the map. Aha, there. There's, I don't know if you've seen the Ugandan national dress, the one the women wear with the big, you've got it, right? The gomesi, yes. Yes, that one there. Oh. That one there, it's called the gomesi in Uganda. Because we mispronounce the word goms. And the tailor was yeah, that is the tailor. I didn't know he passed on recently.
Yes.
But what happened is that pre-colonially, there was a dress Ugandan women used to wear. You know, like you wrap around here.
Bugandan one.
Buganda women, yeah. Even part of the West, they used to, in Bunyoro, they did the same. So it really like from the ground up to here. But I think the missionaries at the school said, you know, you're showing your shoulders. That's not good. So they commissioned, I think, Goms to, it was a school uniform for one of the best girls' schools there, Gayaza. That's how I know it started. So they had to wear a shoulder. So that shoulder gets added, but you know, this was there. So that's okay. Yeah, so that happened, but that was way back before the catastrophic events of the 1940s and the 1950s. Because as the decolonization, if you know, gathered pace, it became very difficult for the British. At no point was there more than 6,000 British or Europeans in Uganda during colonial times. In Kenya, there was a 250,000. So, and I think then what happened is the British used this, the colonialists, they used it, I don't want to say the British, the colonialists, they used this to kind of use the Asian population in Uganda as a kind of body shield, you know, deflecting away that you're having economic problems, those are the ones doing it. You're having this, and they did this deliberately. I think, although to know how it was done, the details, it's something I really need to dig out. So there was poisoning there. I think that was deliberate. Because how was it, what happened between the times of Gomes, when he could do that, and then the time of the economic boycott and what happened in the 90s? I think that period, I really need to pay much close attention to it.
Can I just add something? I remembered when we were talking about the landscape, is that going to Mombasa and coming to Goa really humbled me, in the sense that I used to always describe the green in Durban as a very unique thing. And honestly, maybe that's even what sold the book. I used to describe like the city, this green in my city, if you throw a seed in the air, it will burst into a shoot before it can hit the ground. And I used to talk about this green in this really romantic way. And I was so humbled when I went to Kenya for the first time. And when I came here, I realized this green that I'm talking about is not the only green that we have. This green is everywhere, and I'm describing this place like it's the only place in the world, but this kind of green that you see here, this lushness of this green, is not only a Durban thing, I realized. It's in all these places. It's quite magical.
Assam green. It's quite a remarkable thing, is Assam green. David, so I want to ask you actually, what about this possibility? So this severance took place in, I'm very struck about Uganda. So one of the things is there's a very good book written by a Kenyan, Goan, whose name was J.M. Nazareth, and it's called Brown Man, Black Country. And it's a lament. He's got a poem there also, but he was a representative in Parliament, and he represented the Indian community. He was an Indian nationalist, he was a Goan patriot. And he writes in this book very painfully about the experience of being triangulated by the British, you know, by the colonials while they were leaving. And actually one of the people who kept the receipts on this is her father, on how it happened. Fitz contributed papers to understanding, but it's a very skillful triangulation. So the person he's talking about, Pio Gama Pinto, founded the Pan-African Press. He was a proud Kenyan nationalist. His best friend, there were three of them. There was Fitz de Souza, there was Pio Gama Pinto, and there was Joseph Murumbi Zuzat, who is a bridge figure whose mother was Kikuyu and his father, I think mother was Kikuyu and his father was from Mapsa, and he grew up here in Mapsa, and he was educated in Mapsa and became a kind of a nationalist, went back, became the first vice president, but also second vice president, but also founded this magnificent collection of art and books, which is the centerpiece of Kenyan identity today. So it's very interesting figures. This happened in Uganda as well. I'm struck that these two people who I have been in touch with for many, many years, one is Peter Nazareth, who's a great exemplar of African writing in the 50s. Peter Nazareth was the guy who took African writing to UK as well as Yale, and then he was a professor for many, many years at the Iowa Writers Workshop, which is like one of the centerpieces of the world, and he represents this Ugandan Goan identity, which got erased in a way, but alive in him. And his brother John's the same way. When I arrived in Kampala, John wrote to me a very beautiful email talking about how much he loved Uganda and the Ugandans. So this possibility was severed there. Is this possibility severed in South Africa? Is it possible? Is it possible for you to be a South African exemplar of South African culture? Is it possible for you to authentically be South African in 2025, whose name is Shabnam Khan, who writes in the way that you do about Indians?
I mean, I'd like to think so. You know, I mean, it's a hard question to answer because I know that I'm just being very I'm dreaming too much to say that I'm completely, but I mean, I think so. And even when we went to this Venezuela book fair, we had to represent South Africa, and I was one of the authors who went there to represent South Africa. And I think for me, I'm being idealistic, but like we do strive to do this Rainbow Nation thing where we celebrate our diversities. And I mean, there are times when me personally, like I came for a festival, the Dibrugarh festival just before this, and because they were celebrating African authors and we were in India, I had this funny moment. Just for a moment, I was like, oh, where do I be? Where? I'm not sure. Like, and I never had that for a long time. Normally, I'm quite assured of who I am, but there was this small moment where I was like, I can't say the Indian anthem, but then I can't dance on the stage. Then what am I? Do I need to belong to either? And when I was young, I used to have this feeling like, which culture did I belong to? Just because I grew up my grandfather came from India and I lived with my grandfather. So, and you know, when South Africa and India was playing, he'd always be supporting India, but like my father would be supporting later on South Africa after apartheid. But so I felt in that funny caught position. But I mean, as I got older, I was like, yes, I'm very thoroughly, I represent, you know, this diversity of South Africa and what South Africa is. And, but I have those small moments when I waver. But I think if you had to ask anybody in South Africa, there's no real problem. Yeah.
It's amazing. Actually, that's why South Africa, with whatever problems may be, is an exemplar. It's creating a state which allows people to belong, and it's also gone through things like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. One of the books that's affected me most in my reading over the last few years is a relatively new book by Mahmood Mamdani. How many people here have heard of Mahmood Mamdani? Very few, which is a great pity. So Mahmood Mamdani is a Ugandan-born academic. He happens to be the husband of Meera Nair. How many people here have heard of Meera Nair? Okay.
Mississippi Masala.
Mississippi Masala, yeah, sure, all of those. But Mahmood Mamdani has written an incredible book. It's called No Settler, No Native. I recommend everyone read it. South Africa figures in a very typically Ugandan academic way. Actually, South Africa is a big part of it. Uganda is not mentioned. But clearly a lot of it is his experience also as an Indian from Uganda. And Mamdani's thinking is that this whole, you know, kind of more, he traces the exclusionary nation state where belonging is based on ethnicity. He traces it actually to something that happens here. It's the expulsion of, it's the end of Andalusia. It's the expulsion of people from Spain and Portugal on the basis of religion, ethnicity. You know, the Arabs have to go, the Jews have to convert, etc. The Muslims have to go. And that's the same exact force that comes across the oceans almost immediately to Goa, and then has a kind of that kind of impact here as well. you have been this, but his idea is that we can have multiple homelands. That this idea of a homeland is a kind of an absurdity, and it really is only as long it's only existed as long as the end of the fall of Andalus. So that's a relatively early modern thing. How you've been engaging with Mamdani recently? What do you think about this? Will this idea fly ever in a place like Uganda, that other people can find it their homeland?
Well, I think there's an ethic to being a keeper of memory, you know, and you cannot afford to indulge yourself in petty thinking, you know, and you have to grasp. I think it's your responsibility. Sorry to put that, but I think it's the responsibility of a keeper of memory, a writer, to really interrogate things at a level beyond the casual, you know, and for me as a writer, this is kind of saved me from a kind of knee-jerk. I was a journalist, yeah, but I feel being a writer has given me a lot more, you know. One thing I've thought about this thing, repeat every day for the last 20 years. And one of the things I noticed is that, you know, for us in the part of Africa where I come from, confrontation with cosmopolitanism came rather late compared to, you know, what they used to call the Fertile Crescent, you know, Europe, Asia, you know, for many, I think because of inability of the North to come down to the South, the Sahara Desert, you know, navigation, we were quite shielded for thousands of years from all the turmoil that was roiling everywhere, you know. And when colonialism came, it was a very harsh awakening to the complexity of history. And I think to some extent we are still very early at a process. This is part of the tragedy of being human. You've been through so much pain, but you're still at an early process of how to see things. I see my coming here as part of this learning to have this wider, generous view of things, right? I mean, even at our own level, like look at me. I call myself a Ugandan because that's what the passport says, right? And then I say I come from northern Uganda, just so it isn't confusing for people. But I think I have background in about 4 different ethnicities in Uganda, from the west, from the south. My ancestors go so very recent, actually, in Sudan. You know, so I've been crossing into Kenya, South Sudan, part of Ethiopia, because all of those things, all of the above, okay, and some of us actually migrated into Eastern Africa much later than, let's say, the first white settlers came to Southern Africa. So you have to be extremely bigoted, you know, to claim this space as yours, you know. And what you're saying, what South Africa did, I think they learned the mistake that some of the countries in the North made, and decided to settle for, you know, turn itself into this all-embracing idea of nationhood. Mamdani, thank God, I mean, God bless Mamdani. You know, please forgive him, he's written so much about Uganda already, yeah. He actually reached out to me after I wrote this essay on Kampala. You know, I'd met him before, said hi, but he reached out to me and we exchanged emails over a number of days. And I really appreciated the support that he gave me. And I had already begun to awaken to, I was asked to write that essay on Kampala because the bank needed to be published. So the guy gave me a month's notice. And as being the former journalist I didn't start writing until a week to the deadline, you know. So I kind of put it here, put it there. It wasn't the kind of prose I had been cultivating for a while. But I think it was the subject matter. You could be writing for 20, 30 years, and then you write that one piece. It's like you've written nothing else. I think it struck a raw nerve for a lot of people. Mamdani wrote to me and said, you know, I grew up in Madras Gardens. You know, tracing the history of Kampala, you'll have to read it for yourself, spoiler alert. He reached out and said, thank you very much for writing a history of Kampala. I was very, very humbled. And I asked myself, okay, why didn't you write it before? Then I realized maybe the kind of woundedness I've been feeling isn't mine alone, you know. But it really meant a lot to me that he did that. I think he's one of the scholars we're most proud of, definitely.
We had the privilege, my family and I had the privilege of listening to Mahmood Mamdani present his work at Makerere University, which is this great institution which has its history. Naipaul was there, you know, it has this amazing history. It's been a seed. Ngugi was there. That seeded the rest of the country. By the way, Mamdani told us there that his next book is going to be on Uganda. So he's focusing back on Uganda, hopefully with these insights. Let me ask you, I'm going to go to the audience immediately, but Shabnam, one question, which is that we understand how what South Africa has done in terms of this context for you. What would you like to India? What would you like from India? Seriously, let's hear. What would make you feel like the effort is worth it?
The effort to
publish here, to come here,
because I don't have an audience here, so I try to come here and try to tell people this is book, because what would make the effort worth it?
Yeah, for you, what would you like?
I think I like what I'm doing right now, which is to come to these festivals and listen and talk and see what's happening, because I also felt very cut off from India for a while. You know, I haven't been to India for the last 8-9 years, and yet we were coming a lot more before that. And then I come to these festivals and I hear these conversations happening, and I feel a part of something again. And it's nice also because it reminds me of this journey that my grandfather has made from India to South Africa. And I can have two identities, I can have two cultures. That's fine, that's normal. And I have two great identities and cultures to pull from. Like, honestly, like, if for the good parts, two of the best. Like, I feel I'm in a very sweet spot, and I think I just need to find my space here more. I think that is what I would like, to find a way to find my space here. And I see this happens in Goa a lot. A lot of people come from outside and they find their space here, and I identify a little bit with that. And I feel like through the last festival and this festival, and meeting people and talking to people, and even like hearing there was a discussion on Urdu poetry this morning, and I was like, oh yeah, I should get back into my Urdu, because we're losing Urdu in my family. My grandfather was to speak Urdu, my parents speak Urdu, but I'm losing it because, you know, no one's speaking it in South Africa. But it can add to something, the vibrancy in my own writing. It can inform the fiction worlds that I build. And so the thing that I want and I love that is happening is that I'm getting invited to these festivals. So thank you so much for inviting me here, because it made my world a lot more richer. And I mean, I think that's what I want in a roundabout way.
Big hand for Shabnam. Let's take some questions from the audience. We don't have a ton of time. Yes, please introduce yourself and a quick question, please.
Hello, I'm Aruna Bayani. It's not so much of a question, but it's a little comment on both of your talks, because I can relate a lot to you. Going to Shabnam, you said your identity, you don't know. What I say is I have got best of three worlds. By birth, I'm Ugandan. I was born in Jinja, but I had my primary and secondary school in Kampala. So I can relate very, very much to Africa, Uganda especially. By origin, I'm Indian. I'm Gujarati, but I've chose to come and make Goa my second home. And by right, I'm British, because I have a British passport, and that's where I've done my further studies. So I feel I have best of three worlds. And Durban is, so I've traveled a fair bit, 132 countries, and I've got a book. But my first solo travel was in 2002, which started in Durban. The reason why I chose Durban is because Diwali was coming over, I'm Hindu. And Mitchell Park?
Yeah, that's by my house.
That was 2002. a huge Diwali festival, fireworks and everything. I was really impressed. And then I'm quite a Gandhian, so I went to see the printing press where Gandhiji had opened, and Kasturba had opened a school there. So that was very interesting. But Uganda, I was, right.
Please.
Yeah. Uganda is obviously, I can go on and on and on. My book, my book is called Antarctica to Zimbabwe. My first 2 chapters are on Uganda. I was born there. And I've been back twice since then, 2000 for the millennium, 2012. But I need to make a more recent trip.
Yeah.
Vivek has been, so I'll probably get some tips from him. But very, very interesting. Why India? So when people say I've been to 132 countries, why India? I've never lived in India, born in Uganda. I'm Gujarati, but I chose India. But India is something, it's not a country, it's a continent. It's got everything I look for, travels. It's just very interesting. And your talks have been very, very interesting, extremely impressive. I'll get your books sent.
Thank you. You can comment if you wish.
I just wanted to say about the identity thing, and I only realized this when I was on another panel talking, is that when you have this kind of, when you're in this in-between space of not liking where you are, or thinking you have 2 cultures or 2 identities or whatever, when I do think when you're in that in-between space, it makes you a better writer because you can see things from both perspectives. And when you can see things from both perspectives, when you're writing, it's easy to switch from character to character because it's quite fluid, and I think it's a special space to be actually.
Question?
Yes. So you talked about colonialism as a harsh awakening. You talked about the empire, segregation, races, and a book that constantly kept ringing in my head was Edward Said's Orientalism. And I just want to ask, do we still, in this modern era, see this Oriental perceptions that the West has of the East, and how does it affect India?
Stereotypes. Please, go ahead. You can start first.
Yeah, stereotypes. I think I started following the works of Edward Said quite late. I think he had already died at the time. For me personally, I am an African. It's very difficult being a black person anywhere in the world, you know, even in Africa itself. So you kind of, as a black person, I think when you've been repeatedly subject to all these stereotypes, you develop a certain kind of exterior protection. It's like you actually learn to shut it out. You can move within it and it doesn't really get to you. But I remember the first time I came to Asia, you know, I went to Japan in 2003. Before that, I had never, the idea that I had known Japan through Western media, you know, the place of reverse engineering of this and that and that. That never did not prepare me for what I found in Japan. I became a Japanophile. I actually think I needed help afterwards because I discovered the literature. You know, going back to Shikibu Murasaki and everything. Like, I loved everything Japanese. I couldn't get enough of it. Then the other second trip that I took was to China. This was about 10 years ago, and China was, as always, was never very, you know, what it was in the news, the Communist Party this, Communist Party that. But to go to this, I had already been to many countries in Africa, West and parts of Asia before, but I had never actually been to a country where the government worked hard to make sure people weren't going hungry, to pull like how many hundreds of people away from poverty, you know, from house, you know, so even the people creating the stereotypes, they have an agenda. And if you're in a part of the world where you have no access to information, where you have no access to exposure, if like me, you don't have the gift of the gab and people buy a ticket for that, and you can't go there for yourself, you're the victim and you lose, you know. But I want to say something also about India here, that India is such an uproariously alive place. I don't know if you know this about And I had to keep wiping tears off my eyes when Ranjit was reciting poetry this morning. And I was wondering, man, how come I never knew about this poetry when I was young? How come that face of India didn't come to me? I think that's a question I want to leave like that.
One last question, because this, please, Albertina, introduce yourself and ask the question.
I'm Albertina Almeida, I'm from Goa. I have one question as to what happens when we get the best of various cultures. What are our reflections on what we are giving to those the best that we got from each of these, and how are we giving?
But then I think we're like the bridge between the two, right? So I can talk about South African Indians, and in South Africa I can talk about the Indian culture and what we do. And I am then that, not me, but like everyone who in my society can easily form that bridge. And I think this brings it back all the way to the beginning of this conversation when we were talking about why don't these spaces speak to each another more, and we need to find these links and these bridges and bring them together more so that these conversations happen more.
Thank you so much. Building bridges. Shabnam Khan is doing an amazing job. We should be proud of her in India as well. Thank you so much for coming, Shabnam. David Kaiser is starting to build a set of bridges which are going to be awesome. I didn't do this at the beginning of the session, but I'd like everyone who has a direct Africa connection, that is their father or themselves were born. Can you raise your hand in this audience? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Augusto, 6, 7, 8. Dhruvo? We are all from Africa. Not Dhruvo. But please note, I told him in Kampala that in my audiences at the Goa Arts and Literature Festival, 10%, that's more than 10% here. I have a direct, they were born in Africa. That's an amazing thing. It's time for Africa. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this lovely session. Please keep your seats for the last session of the Goa Arts and Literature Festival 2025 before the Shakespeare concert. Please keep your seats.
Spend a little bit of time with you, maybe.
David is going to be in
Yeah.
Goa for a few more days.
Yeah, I'm around for
Thank you
until
so much.
the 22nd.
No, for the
Yeah.
audience,
What?
for the best question.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a journalist.
Who do you choose?
No, I've been
Let's
a
give to that
writer
boy.
more than.
Wait
Yeah,
one
yeah,
second.
yeah.
Excuse me.
You want to take pictures?
Shabnam Khan would like to award you this book for asking that excellent question on Orientalism. Please get it signed. Big hand for Shabnam Khan. Folks, please get it signed. Please keep your seats for the last and final discussion about the amazing Dibrugarh Literature Festival, Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival. Please
Let's
keep
take a
your
photo
seats.
and
We'll
then
start
I'll
in
come.
5 minutes.
Let's take a photo.
Yes, we must take a photo. because he is one of the finest writers from the Northeast. He's written of India of our times actually, but his novels and writings are based in the Northeast. His book Bowstring Winter is really, to me, one of the best, most informative, interesting books that I've read on India. It's based in Shillong. I strongly urge you to buy it. It's outside. And I would also like to congratulate him on his new book of short stories. With him is Rahul Jain, who I will use the word that Shashi Tharoor once used to describe me, which is impresario, which is a word I'm not terribly thrilled about either. But Rahul Jain makes magic happen. And both of these, all three of us, as well as Shabnam, as well as Annie Zaidi, as well as Martin, who's here, were at this absolutely magical Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival in Assam. Okay? And it was great for me. It was maybe not so great for the other organizers of GALF because I disappeared for 5 or 6 days and refused to answer emails or do any programming. So whatever errors you felt here, I'm sorry. But what was amazing was Dibrugarh is very far away from Goa. In fact, Dibrugarh is closer to Vietnam, it's closer to Cambodia, it's closer to Nepal, it's closer to all those places, much closer. When I met people at the Dibrugarh University Literature Festival last year, I realized Cambodia is 1,000 kilometers closer to Dibrugarh than Goa is, right? I went from a very far. And so Dibrugarh is a unique place also. It's across the river from Arunachal Pradesh. It's very tied to our industrial history. Digboy, the world's oldest functioning oil fields are there. You drive for half a day from Dibrugarh, you're in Burma. You drive another half a day, you're in China. It's a very distant place. And there, they invented a literature festival. And Rahul and Dhuvada have done an incredible job bringing the world, truly the world, far more, in a far greater way than we have managed. Maybe over the course of the entire Goa Arts and Literature Festival, we managed something on that scale. I mean, there was a time when many people came from Pakistan and Bangladesh. That's no longer possible. But at their festival, they brought the world to Dibrugarh and to this wonderful university. And the university audience is marvelous. Someday, take a number of our students there to see what we do. There is a great kinship in belonging to the margins in a way. But there was a good opportunity for me to think about LitFest. Now, as you know, Damodar Mauzo and myself are volunteer members of Goa Arts, of the Goa writers who run this festival. And every year it is kind of a joy and kind of a huge burden. And we wonder, why do you do this? Why am I doing it? In Dibrugarh, I was really reminded of why I'm doing it, because that festival is so vital. It's so much of the moment. It's so valuable. People may not believe it's worth it to bring writers from around the world, 10 or 12 of them from Africa, to this distant part of the Upper Brahmaputra Valley. But over there, the magic is real. I mean, let me tell you, it's a really, really impressive, amazing thing. So a big hand to you guys, and I've put you in touch with, you're in conversation with Damodar Mauzo, the finest curator of our times that we have here. Please, bhai, just in your hands.
I think we can use this one. Okay.
No,
Yeah,
see.
use this.
A very warm welcome to this last session of this 13th edition of Goa Art and Literature Festival. I thank you, all of you, whoever present here who are not also, for making this a great success. As Vivek had just told you, it was my privilege to be in Dibrugarh Literature Festival, Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival, truly international, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. This is not the first time. I was there last year also, and which incidentally was their beginning, the first edition ever of Dibrugarh International Festival, Literature Festival. And that time it was a great festival. I enjoyed it. It was a very successful. And fortunately for me, my co-curator here, my friend Vivek also was present. I don't know whether it was deliberate because Dhruva has been knowing me and he has visited our festival earlier. So he knows me. Rahul probably for the first time attending this literature festival. But It so happened that we both were invited, and it is not very common that we both go together for literature festivals. Living Goa Art and Literature Festival, it was very imminent to happen, but yet we did it, and we both were very happy after attending the first ever. And I am very proud that I was privy to it. It was the first ever. And then second festival, when I got the invite, I was surprised. Generally, when we send the invites, if you are invited this year, we avoid the next year, because it becomes a same face people have to see. But then you invited me, and I went there, and with an expectation that, oh, first edition is always big. And probably sometimes after the first edition, the organizers get a bit exhausted. And I know for sure you conducted the second edition even before 1 year was complete. Last year it was in March.
1 month short.
Yeah, it was in March, and this time it is in February. But I was, to my surprise, you have grown multiple times. Not just doubled, I would say. The organization-wise, authors-wise, the book releases, and many other activities. Now that you are here for the first time, both the organizers, I would say, just like you invited me and Vivek of the Goa Art and Literature Festival, you are here from the Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival. I would like to pose a basic question. By the way, Dhruva is a writer, my fellow writer, who also writes fiction mainly. I love short story, and I also write novels, the same way here, Dhruva. Then Rahul, I met for the first time, I believe, last year.
No, prior to that.
Prior to that. I'm sorry, my memory is failing sometimes. But then I know him as an organizer. But here I know Dhruva as my fellow writer. May I ask you, as a writer, why did you feel the urge to hold this or organize this first ever Dibrugarh International Literature Festival? I'm asking about the last one. This is the second edition, but then it had the first edition, which was I would say it was a trial, because when we conducted Goa Art and Literature Festival, we never thought that there will be another edition. But now we are already in the 13th edition. So what was the idea? Why did you feel like holding the festival?
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone present here today. Damodarda, actually that question, I've been attending festivals one way or the other over the last 15 years or maybe more. The first one was in Pampa in Kerala, and when you get an invite, you feel good in the sense that I'm starting off with the invitation part.
Yes.
And you feel that you are a writer. That means you've written something and someone's appreciated, and that feeds into you, and it probably is it's a nugget for an inspiration. That's one. The other thing is that this is again personal. All this that I'm saying, it's personal, not on behalf of Rahul, because Rahul is basically the brains behind all this. I'm probably some kind of a mouthpiece. But then I found in a lit fest, the author is also a reader. So I read my books. But when you come across an author, you come across something that you'll never find in a book. I'll just give you one or two instances. I had an interaction with Shabnam here, where we talked about the role of the short story vis-a-vis the novel. And I said I've got an inclination, a soft corner for the short story, and not necessarily for the novel, although I have written novels, 2 novels so far. And then she said something brilliant, for me. And she said, Dhruva, may I, Shabnam, reveal the revelatory sentence from you? She said, Dhruva, I'm not really for the short story so much as I am for the novel. I said, why? She said, I'm there. I go along with the story. I'm so excited, and suddenly it stops. It finishes, and I want more. And then it struck home to me. Oh my God! Yes, there is a reason why you can love a novel far more than you can love a short story. That's one. Then you come across Sumana Roy saying yesterday things which you don't get in a book, but you'll get across in a lit fest. And she says that yesterday I remember that no woman has ever written an epic, EPIC. Why? And she gave the reasons. Wow. These kind of things you come across only in a lit fest when you come across an author in the flesh who tells you things spontaneously, maybe without much of thinking as such. So this is, these are some of the reasons why I think that a lit fest ought to happen. The second part is this, Damodar Da. During the COVID, we had this, Arijit, please forgive me, I touch a raw chord. We had this online get-togethers, literary get-togethers. And there it was just the face and the screen and very tiny, sort of thing. And you didn't really know what was happening. And you were lucky enough if you had good eardrums. And you had to strain to know what was said, what was not said. And hence, these are the general, the philosophy behind which on a personal take, why I love a Lit Fest. And why the Dibrugarh Lit Fest happened. Rahul, I think I'll hand over this to you because you're a better bat in this sense, and I generalized it deliberately so that you get a stepping stone to talk about the rest. The less I speak, the better, because you are the guy who has done a lot of good work, Rahul. In fact, Damodar, before this began, we were outside, and Damodar said, "Dhruva, I haven't prepared anything. Just let the session flow as it will let it flow." About Rahul, I just want to say that he's been at this the writing exercise for donkey's years, as a journalist, as a film buff, and so many things. So Rahul, before actually I'm taking on the role of a moderator, so please carry on. We'll come to that later.
Let me expand on your question itself. See, in India now so far, I have not kept the track as such, not the count, but I think around 100 festivals are being conducted all over India. So, in fact, last 2 years I was sensing that the literature festivals are on the decline. I felt so. But now I realize there are many festivals are also in the offing, where small places like Sikkim and Aizawl, and even in Kerala, I attended one festival, Payanur, conducted, organized by municipality. So it was very interesting to see villagers also coming in large numbers to attend the festivals. But why did you feel to like holding a literature festival after so many years? I think Jaipur started the trend. Of course, I attended once and I never felt like going back in. I don't have the urge to go to mega festivals like that. But then everybody's choice, I don't say. Shabnam must be having different experience. But it was...
Small is beautiful.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. That is precisely why we keep it small, intimate, and we have not changed the pattern so far. But my question to you is, again, as Dhruva said, why did you start so late? My question would be, why so late? You, the organizers of your caliber, should have thought much earlier. Was it Dhruva who inspired you to invite the authors?
Well, I must admit that the importance of Rahul Jain is exaggerated. So, first of all. Second, we had the Brahma...
People will probably be tempted to believe it, going by his frail stature, but it's not so. He is a giant in this field. I have seen it.
Well, we had the Brahmaputra Literature Festival preceding a major festival like ours in Dibrugarh, but post-COVID era, and just prior to COVID, we had the Citizens Amendment issue, CAA.
Yeah.
So that put stop to these kind of festivals because it almost collided. The agitation time and the literature festival almost collided, and the atmosphere was not conducive. And then the government of the day decided that, for the right reason, that this year we should stop it. And then we were hit by COVID and the whole idea of festival, because Brahmaputra festival was picking up at one point in time, where and then there was this hiatus of 3-4 years, and then the urge of the writers and the urge of the readers like me. What we had done in the literature festival, and by the way, let me exaggerate my importance as well. I also curated the Guwahati International Film Festival and the documentary festival. So what we did was, the model was to invite students from nearby areas as well as the northeast of India. We pay them to come. Like, we take care of their accommodation, their food and their transport. So because it was government funded, it was the taxpayers' money coming to us. So how did we pay back? We pay back to the taxpayer by inviting these students, nucleus of students. I could not have taken that. These were all international in true nature, Damodara. So we thought that I cannot take these filmmakers or these writers or documentary makers to this part of the world. Jolly well we bring a nucleus of students from each of these rural or mafussil areas, as we call in journalism, to our festival, house them with us and allow them a peek into the world. Allow them an opportunity to talk to the other person, see the world from a different canvas. And within Assam, the diversity, like getting a Khasi and a Bodo and a Garo and people, Dimasa, together under one platform. Post the festival, you imagine the scenario when a Bodo is talking to a Dimasa and a Garo is talking to a Khasi. This was this imagination that was put to stop once this festival stopped. I mean, all this literature festival, the film festival, the documentary festival. And that urge was kicking in for the last 3-4 years until we decided that it's time we do it on our own. There were a number of times the government included our festival in the budget, as we call it. Never allotted enough money for that. So then we decided that a motley group of writers, bureaucrats, filmmakers, and I'm the only person who would do the legwork because someone has to do it. And that's how the idea of another festival came. And not the enormity or the scale of it. The whole idea was, can we engage with the youth in dialogue through the medium of art, culture and literature? Something that was amiss in the whole of Northeast. I mean, some pockets, yes, but the scale at times you require to impress the next generation also with the scale. That was driving us, that yes, another festival, but then among the first in that part of the world, if not the biggest. I mean, we never went to compare with any other festival. All festivals have their unique characteristics.
What about the role of the university?
University. So now, what it does is that once we had this group in place, we had a trust called the Foundation for Culture, Art and Literature, formed in September. So we decided it ideally, initially we toyed with the idea of a private university, but then we realized we had their shortcomings, the pros and cons. So then Dhrupada suggested, because of his connections earlier, he had been to the university, the Dibrugarh University, for workshop and all. And in Assam, because it's a very small place, the connect is always there. The first name terms, and almost each other. And you must have met their parents, or you must have met their brothers or siblings, and the other person. So it was easier for us to get the university on board for two reasons. A, we have the captive audience of 5,500 students. So you all dread empty seats, anyone, any writer, filmmaker, anybody would dread empty seats, even politicians do. So what we did was, we thought we have the universities, as captive audience, university student. If at all we cannot do anything, we can certainly get all the hall filled up. And then some are standing, so writers would say, oh, my session was full. So we had this encouragement that yes, A, audience. B, we wanted to stir the civil society wherever we go. I mean, that's the original objective, that okay, students, the next generation readers, honestly, we don't want them to be writers, all of these students. We want them to be good readers. That's the whole idea that our trust, we decided that how to engage with the next generation. So I think then the university became a natural partner. Because it's a public university, the trust is there. Now nobody knows who Rahul Jain is or probably who Dhruva Hazarika as a writer is. Why will you invest your sponsorship money and the permission? But if it's a public university, one up, because you know that there is an institution backing a festival or a group of individual. So the trust factor was built because the university was there. And that's how I think one led to the other.
But frankly, I was really impressed by the quality of the audience, because though there were a lot of students, also members of the civil society also were present, but then the response that we were eliciting from the students community, they were attentive throughout the sessions, they were responsive, and also most of the questions came from the students.
True.
It was, I don't know whether Shabnam you will agree with me, the students, that encourages the speakers and the writers. I'm really surprised because that was, you can say Dibrugarh is towards the far east, particularly as I am from the far west as compared to Dibrugarh. But then I don't know how this connects, but then Dhruva and I have been friends. But then what do you think about the literary ambience in Assam? Rather, why speak only about Dibrugarh? What is the, because I think most of the bureaucrats in India hail from either Bihar or Assam. I know, for mine, I don't know, I may be wrong, but you yourself have served the government as bureaucrat, so you will know better. But then what is the position or ambience, literary ambience in Assam?
Damodar, see, the literary consciousness in Assam is very strong, very intense. If the novel is any yardstick about the reckoning for this, the Assamese novel goes back to almost 120 years, the first Assamese novel. There, recent, that is about a year back, there was a survey done, I do not know how, but it came out in a newspaper that there are about 30,000 poets. 30,000 poets and writers who write, and well, they are there. It could be more. Thereafter, the reader who reads in Assamese or who writes in Assamese far outweighs the writer who writes in English. But in the Northeast, we have 142 language and dialects and as many tribes. And there is a connect through the English language, very strong connect. Rahul, you'll agree with me on that score.
For sure.
So therefore, we have a lot of readers too who read in the English language. In Dibrugarh, we have, if you want, I would not be able to give you the specifications because there's no survey been done as yet, or even if it's been done, I am not aware of it. But there is an easy flow of speaking in English at least. And we have 42 students. Out of the 42 students from foreign countries, there are 30 from the African continent. And they all communicate in English. About the reading part, we had this, this bookshop there, which you had been, which you had seen. And the day when it finally ended, I asked them how were the sales, and they told me it was wonderful, sir. They sold off. Of course, there were a few remnants, but then they sold off.
Yeah.
So now you see the other thing about a fest like this in, about a festival like this in Dibrugarh is that there's a novelty to it. They've never come across something on this scale, and they are basically, when they talk about authors, to many persons, an author is someone who's looked up to. You generally don't look down upon an author. Whether you write badly, mediocre, average, or excellent, an author is, or a poet is a poet, is a poet. So there is a degree of awe to it. Why? Because this generation, their parents, I'm of course that I belong to that parentage. We had told our children that literary exercises are something that you should respect, and that subconsciousness still prevails among the students in any university in the Northeast or in India, especially in Dibrugarh. So it is for that reason, Damodar, I do not know whether I've been slightly, weaving around a bit too much, but that was basically the one of the essences which made this hopefully what I would call a success in terms of if numbers as well as in terms of the interaction about which you referred to.
Yeah,
but there could be more reasons about which I have not really analyzed properly.
Yeah. A couple of years back, I was invited to inaugurate a book festival. I think it was a book exhibition or but large scale. I was really surprised. People had to pay fees to get entry in the book fair.
Can I?
Yeah.
We have the Assam Sahitya Sabha. The Assam Sahitya Sabha is a conglomeration of people who read and write, and it exceeds 3 lakh. The membership is perhaps one of the highest in the world. These are registered. It's a registered body. It has its own corpus fund of about 5 to 10 crores. From what this is hearsay, but it's there, and hence the readership potency is very palpable, and wherever you go, if not in English, at least in Assamese, in Bangla, in Bodo, these are very, very strong elements of the thriving nature of reading, if not writing.
Yeah, I was referring to the same. At the book fair, the footfall was nearly about 20,000 every day.
Every day, yeah.
And who paid the fees and entered there. I think time was limited, evening or something. I was really surprised by that and felt every Assamese has to be proud of that. As you said, the literary consciousness is there, and particularly most of the books were Assamese. Which were being sold. And I would see every person who is going out carrying a bag full of books. That is very encouraging to writers. Now coming back to Rahul, right in the beginning, you got the idea of inviting authors from abroad. How was it possible? When we started, with Dr. Ananthamurthy inaugurated our first edition.
Yes.
And we were very happy to have a limited crowd. But then you managed to bring in authors from abroad. Last year I remember, because authors from Ukraine and other parts, many parts of course.
That was Rahul's doing.
Yeah, but this time...
After discussing with me, of course.
Yeah, but this time, but a strong contingent from abroad and from the African continent. Nobody would have thought of it. But then you managed to get that, and thanks, because of you, we came across writers like Shabnam and many others, of course, and Carla and all. Carla was from
Angola, Portugal.
Angola, and she was very happy to converse with me in Portuguese. And I felt elated at the little knowledge that I have of Portuguese. I could, use with her. But anyway, how do you manage it?
I mean, it was the experience of the previous festivals where I was associated.
But it looked like all the organizers had all the expertise, and they were seasoned, like experienced organizers.
I think they were, and the fact that before the trust decided that how to go about it. So one thing we were clear is that it has to be. You never get a chance to create a second impression. I mean, you never get a second chance to rather create a first impression. That was the idea. Yeah. So we thought that if it has to be done now, it must start with a bang.
Yeah.
So that students know that we are up there for them, and then the drive was there to raise that kind of an sponsorship money and the scale. So I think that emboldened us, and we were lucky also. You need to be lucky at many scores on when you get writers like these or raise funds like this. So it's a combination of both the factors. A, the experience that we had from previous festivals and how internationalizing the festival did help getting the students and attract them. And then they go back and talk to their classmates and college friends about this. And the fact that all our trustees are, I mean, quote unquote, heavyweights in their respective field.
Heavyweights.
So that kind, both in terms, of course.
I'm 82 kgs.
He's 82 kg, for example. So when you have this punching, they used to punch above their weight, I think. So we could pull it off. You have to be lucky.
Yeah. In fact, since you are a bureaucrat, and I found it, whether Pyarelal or many others I saw, who were active in the literary field, though they were they have served the government as IAS officers or IRS officers, but they were very active. Has that helped you? I mean, attract authors and from abroad I am talking about.
Damodar, we are actually, we have a group of 7, out of which Janu Barua is a film, he's an internationally known filmmaker. I think there's no award that he hasn't been offered or proffered or given.
Yeah.
He's traveled more countries than I can think of. Out of the 196 countries, Rahul, he's been to about 190 countries. I once asked him, then he said, no, Dhruva, you asked me which countries I have not been to. So he's that well known.
Yeah.
So he's the man who's actually the beacon in our organization. And then we have our former Chief Secretary, Mr. Pyarelal from Kerala. He's based there. There is Mr. Papa Rao, who resigned from the IAS to become a full-time filmmaker. He is based also in Hyderabad. He's an aficionado of Bhupen Hazarika. And not only that, I'm saying this because I know we know each other personally. They are senior to me. Then we have Kalyan Chakravarti. Kalyan is a man who's given to arts in all its, in its dignity, flamboyance, its creativity, in its, he was born to be an artist, but unfortunately, don't quote me, he's become a bureaucrat, and happily so for us, because he can reach out to sources which I, after having retired, cannot, or if Rahul perhaps may not be able to. Thereafter, we have Jayanta Chaudhary, a very, very deeply honest officer who was the Director General of Police of Assam, and he is from the neighboring district of Dibrugarh, that's Tinsukia. So that's a bit of a help for us in terms of connectivity. And he was also, he's been traveling all over giving lectures on various aspects of security, and therefore developed a lot of connectivity, both abroad as well as here. Am I right, Rahul?
Yeah.
Because Rahul and Rahul's family and his family are very close friends. Then there is Rahul and I. And Rahul is the trustee, he's the managing trustee, he's the guy who runs around and we sort of sit in air-conditioned rooms and talk big. But that is, putting it lightly, Rahul really does most of the base work. And yes, Damodar, I think to have done what we did, and which is saying quite a lot, because I never thought we could have done last year what we did. Till the last moment, we had only about 6,000 rupees in our bank account, in the trust's bank account. And at one point of time, we were almost onto fisticuffs, I said, oh, Rahul, I'm walking out. I'm not going to make a fool of myself. And Rahul says, Dhruva, just hold on, okay? Just hold on. And I, who thought, I've had years of experience as a civil servant, I thought I knew it all. I was, see, on a stage like this, you can't be artificial. It just spontaneous, it comes out. So I'm hopefully very honest with you. I just wanted to walk out. That's when he said, no, you hang on. And within 15 days, it's a miracle how it happened. The well-wishers, people who, somebody, would you mind offering lunch to the 120 authors? Yes, sir, we will. Yes, Rahul, we will. Why? No, the way you approached us. 120, a lunch here, a dinner a day. Then, we went for the accommodation part. There were 2-3 hotels which we had to, we went, of course, Rahul and I went much before the event, and we had to personally meet. And one by one, and then the students and the teachers came in. There's this extraordinary registrar whose name is Mr. Sonwal, Paramananda Sonwal. He's a sort of a living dynamo. he they get along together because of this gift of being very dynamic. And words are not enough here. A writer writes, a writer talks, but it's finally the putting the dots together.
In 3 days, and that took us plenty of, organizing a festival here of this scale, Downloader will know the financial implications. So we had both financial implications as well as implications in kind, and the kind outsmarted the financial part. And therefore, to sum it up, what Damodar had said, because they were former civil servants, and mind you, not all civil servants are inartistic or non-artistic. Civil servants can love the arts, because the bureaucracy is an art by itself. If you know how to run the bureaucracy or how you think about the bureaucracy, we have some beautiful people in these services, whether it's in the army or whether it's in the police service or in the civil service or anyway, or engineers. There is artistry. And when the it's Coelho, who said the world, the universe conspires, they say, Shabnam, the universe conspires when you really have good intentions. So I would feel touched with our intentions are noble and good, hopefully, and we can sustain that. What do you say? Yeah.
Just carry it on from there. Allow me to beat my own drum. As he said, experience never always accompanied years, nor was youth always without it. So probably when during the first festival, situation was such that we had hardly any money. I just stuck to my belief that it will happen. So it just happened because I knew, because I was doing the work at the grassroots. Yeah.
He's my son.
How old are you?
He's 47.
Huh?
This December he crossed 47.
You don't look that, but you're 47, like hats off, yeah.
That's what I said. Experience never always accompanied years, nor was youth always without it. So I prided myself in the fact that, jokes apart, had he not disclosed, I would have said 27.
I would believe you because you look
You would have been. I mean, in Delhi Metro, when I travel, people, girls especially ask me, which university are you in? So jokes apart, yeah. That was it. And the other thing was that the drive was there in us. We need to do this, no matter what. So let me just go back to the accounts. The first festival we had a deficit. None of us, none of us thought, "Is saal makeup ho jayega." And when I come here next year, if Damodar invites, I'll tell you how much of profit we made.
When is your festival next? When is the next festival?
February 2nd, 2026.
Oh, you already decided the dates.
Yeah, we have
Wonderful.
You have to do it at least a year prior to get the people like Shabnam on board and all.
But how do you choose the authors from abroad when he invites you? Approach the embassies and entrust them to send authors, or you choose?
It's always a consultative process, but someone being a curator, I have to, bell that yet somehow. It happens that as a reader, because you have the independence to decide, okay, I like this book, so I like this author. And then when I propose it to the trust, generally they will not say no. Unless, of course, there is something to the contrary. And so we had a very fabulous understanding of that, okay, being a curator, I take a pick on who the authors are, how the session will span out. So the whole vision is somebody has to do it. So probably it was me who decided that, okay, we want the festival to be like this. See, I must admit and we must understand, our target audience are the students. So, other festivals, they have a very vibrant, as I said, civil society group who are, among them are probably former authors who will now come as audiences. So, you know, that kind of proposal and rejections and then discussion is there. Out there in the university, we know that it will almost be a monologic process to begin with. We start with that assumption. Unless Damodar Das says no, it was always a dialogic process when he had his sessions. For us, we knew that it is we who need to serve them. Now, it has to be an eclectic range, ranging from, because it's a university, so there's an economics department, department of commerce.
Directly telling us to shut up.
No, you put both the other mics off. No.
Yeah. So, like other festival, it had to be an eclectic range, and then you probably, take a feedback of.
Let's put away the mic.
Okay.
And it still continues. Can we turn off the sound? Oh, sorry.
I think that they are using extra current today, the constant use of training.
Not me. Not my connection. There's nothing here, right?
Sorry, give us a second. कब बंद है?
Boss,
Can we turn off the sound?
आपका वो ये बंद कर. This is not mine.
No, it just started suddenly.
Mine is completely wireless.
No, we have put it off.
This one as well?
This one.
Loose connection.
Can you turn off the sound system?
It's coming from outside, but
Sir,
mine is off.
off केलं.
Off.
So this was this kind of an sort of a dilemma or choice that we had to offer to the students that, okay, let us touch as many ranges as possible, let us get as eclectic as we can. So we had business biographies, we had writing on sports and military history, and then police, and then of course literature, poetry, and region specific. We wanted to focus on Malayalam,
Okay,
so we did that.
Not connected.
And of course, although they are a university student, but let us also understand that an English literature student is not interested in Thomas Piketty. Now, how do you decide who is going to be your audience? Or whether it is enjoined on you to tell him who Thomas Piketty is and who a historian is. So it's always a dilemma I think most curators will go through, but thankfully because the likes of Druboda and our other trustees are extremely well read. So this was an easy call for us. And see, for us, we did not go by names. Now the whole idea of this festival that was rankling me was, in university syllabus, you read only a selected, even African writers, you read a selected lot of them. You read selected American. Now, who tells you these are the only African or American or European representative? How about someone in the Baltic and the Balkan, someone from Guinea-Bissau, okay, over there, we had it. So it was also that idea that we wanted to give to the students, that whatever you are reading in the university syllabus, I think African literature will go beyond that. Even the European literature can certainly go beyond that. And this idea we had was based on our experience from the previous festivals, not necessarily literature festival. In our film festivals, we had films from all over the world, but not this Hollywood or English-speaking world. We avoided Australia, we avoided England. So this idea is to give our students an actual understanding of what is happening and around the world from these kind of countries. So I think that that almost summed up how we decided.
And last year we had Damodar as our chief guest. So that was, the Gyanpith is such, is the Nobel Prize, what the Nobel Prize is to the world, Gyanpith is to India. And Damodar has been, much before he got his Gyanpith, Damodar, he knows what I had for him. So Rahul had asked me, and Dhruvoda, whom do we call, whom do we invite as a chief guest? We have luminaries in Assam, but then they are pretty well known, not a problem. So Damodar, when I rang him up, he said, Dhruva, I'll be happy to come. And we were truly happy, not I, but the students. They simply went gaga over the whole thing last year. This year too, we had Dr. Nogen Saikia. He is also an icon of sorts in Assam. A legendary person, a conscience keeper for Assam, a literary giant. So he was very fit, 92 years old. He had come in a wheelchair, but he did come. And that itself was an encouragement to the students, a person of 92 years old, 92 years old, right?
Yes,
90 plus, and he had come in a wheelchair. So our choice of authors, like Rahul says, is eclectic. And why we went for Africa, again, that's, next year probably we had thought about the Red Indians, the writers who, the American Indians, who had written and who have had a lost voice. And Rahul and I and all the other 5 of the trustees, we have, like all of us here, a strong sense for the underdog. And by that, I don't mean to say that we are patronizing or condescending, but then the word underdog has so many connotations. And hence, I think, Rahul, I don't want to speak much because supposedly a writer like me is supposed to write, not talk. So.
Please, people put it on. This is from you. Yeah. No, but see, this year you invited the African contingent. What was the strong reason why African contingent? You explained it. African contingent of writers, I said.
Rahul, it's again the sort of, boredom is something that none likes. I think it's the worst sort of disease anybody can have. And when something that is unusual for a place like Dibrugarh, where some sort of newness is there, something that they had never thought possible before. So that we had sort of thought of, envisaged the group. And it fell upon Rahul. He was the one who offered the spark about calling the writers from Africa. But now most of these writers are not basically based in Africa right now. They are based in either in Lisbon or in France or in Spain, and they are what you call the Rahul, please pick up from here.
But also, I remember you referred to the African students. African students are studying in Indian universities.
Don't use a mic. Just put the mics on.
It's external to the mic, I think.
No, you see, the Northeast has a lot of African students. In the in IIT Guwahati, for example, in the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, we have about 12. The 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
So it was also for them, but not necessarily for them all the time. It was when we talked about the students, it meant all the students in Dibrugarh University or in the nearby districts. There are how many colleges under Dibrugarh University?
177.
There are 177 colleges under that university. Because we are in this part of the country, or it's like that. India is so great and so beautiful because of that. Each place has its own beauty, its splendor. So these 177 colleges, they are under the umbrella of Dibrugarh University. So it's not necessarily only for the African students that we thought of, but through happenstance, they happened to be there. They performed, they interacted.
For some years back, I don't remember exactly which year, Assam Sahitya Sabha, they call it Haba. Anyway, I was invited to distant place. I forgot the name. But, no, in Margarita district.
Oh, Margarita.
So almost on the border of Burma. And I couldn't imagine there were nearly about more than 1 lakh of people. As if it was a mela. It was a mela. People were taking the elephant rides. Even the authors were taken in on the elephant backs. I was surprised by that. But I personally felt hardly anybody was interested in listening to the authors. I was very happy. They told me to speak for about 20 minutes. I was the guest of other speakers, I don't remember. But there were others, like Prabhakar Shrutia and others were there. And when the time came to speak, they asked me to please speak for 10 minutes. Finally went to Prabhakar Shrutia and asked him to speak for 3 minutes. And that he was irritated. You have paid lakhs of rupees on me, bringing me here and asked me to address for 3 minutes and 5 minutes. I know nothing doing, I'll speak, he said. And he said, oh, that's a part. But the governor was there, governor of Assam, and it was a big thing, but I did not enjoy it much. When I came to Dibrugarh, I had that at the back of my mind, but this was a totally different experience. And Vivek has deliberately scheduled this session, mainly because we also want to know from you, share with you our views and your views also. Because we have learned a lot from you. And now by the last question before we throw it to the others. Rahul, you organize the Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival in a grand way. We continue to organize Goa Art and Literature Festival in a different manner, in an intimate manner, which is very, as Madam Matana Singh said, it is, what do you call it, small is beautiful. And we have retained it. What do you think about our festival? And vis-a-vis yours, I'm not comparing, comparisons are odious. Comparisons are odious. We are 100% sure our festival is beautiful. It is. But we are in awe of your festival. So, what are your views about our festival?
No, see, look at the audience all through the 3 days, houseful, very, very engaging. So I think small, again I'm using the word small festival as you said, has their own, festivals have their own beauty.
Yes.
That intimacy is there. In our case, because the university is such a huge structure, and then an institution with 5,000, so it invariably fell on us that we wanted to create a first impression. Maybe we were trying to...
needed to share that
Yes.
with many
So
young people as possible.
I think as long as we can continue, we would like to continue it on a scale that allows us.
Yeah.
But I have no shame in admitting that if tomorrow circumstances disallow, force us, a writer is after all a writer, 40 of them will still make the university student conscious of what we want to do. The more the merrier, provided it is manageable. If not, no shame. Getting writers to bring and come to the students' doorstep and allowing that 100 flowers to bloom is our idea of a festival with the youth vis-a-vis.
Actually, when we first began, when we sat down together, my first take was that we have a small group, not exceeding 20 to 25. I was speaking more as an author than as a reader. Then it was Rahul and Kailan who says, we have to reach out to the students. Don't be so self-centered. Don't think too much about you and interacting with Shabnam, for example, or with Vivek or with Damodar. My take was how to get across to your mind, Damodar's mind, get these nuggets out. I was very self-centered. And then, if the finances allow, if the environment allows, reach out. That was Rahul's take, Kailan's take, and then Mr. Pyarilal's take. So basically it's what target do you have? And like Rahul says again, if it does happen, maybe next year we'll have only about 10 writers. So be it. so long as the continuum happens. But then Vivek, just to tell you this, you know, one of the sources, and it's a major one, is Gulf.
Thank you.
It is, because I've been here a number of times, 5 times, this is my 5th visit here. And the second thing is this, Damodaran and Vivek have always been, you know, when others would talk about us writers from the Northeast has been clubbed, you know, RT, it has been clubbed unnecessarily, I would say. Yet, Vivek would be the one who would always, whatever we write, he would be the one focusing us. And for some reason, I do not know whether Arish will agree with me, he's got a very wonderful online community writers workshop. But then in the Northeast, I'm not speaking on behalf of all of them, probably a few of us, we are not very, you know, forceful about displaying our whatever little efforts we have generated in our lives through the written word. So we have a sense of being propped up by someone. I mean, I'm being very brutal, honest about it. And Vivek's Dada is one, Damodar Dada is one who speaks well about history in Kiri, who speaks about Temsulao, who speaks about Mamam Dai, about Jenny Spadian, about Desmond Khanmaflong, about Kin Fong Sing Dong Kinri. You name it, you have it. These guys are basically believing they are gems. So we owe it to you, Vivek, to Damodar Dada, and hence the inspiration for the festival, at least from my point of view, is also born of and from GALF. Thank you for that. Thank you.
May I ask one small question?
I just want to quickly respond. I want to quickly respond to that, which is that I really appreciate actually the writers of the Northeast. I don't like the term Northeast. Actually, each state is totally different, and then they lump Sikkim, and it makes no sense. But the writers of the Northeast are some of the best in India today. If you want to live a life as a writer in India, if you have a sense of also ways of belonging, then the writers from Shillong are more important to me by magnitude, orders of magnitude, than the writers who emerged from, say, Bangalore. We talk about Bangalore as globalizing, we talk about English literature. Shillong has produced this incredible, including his own Bowstring Winter. So our ways of belonging can include the Northeast in a very formidable way, and that has been at the heart of our festival. One thing I love about the Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival, and I must thank both of you, is that Goa has always been there. We have had the opportunity in Dibrugarh to talk about Goa, and here in Goa we talk about Assam, which means improbable, we don't have to explain ourselves to anyone else, improbable as it may be, these connections, this reality is real, we live in it together. So it's a wonderful thing. Let's take one question, then we have to end up.
I'm just curious why you have not included the regional writers.
Sorry? Why have you not included regional writers?
Why only English writers?
Oh no, we have.
No, they have it.
I'm sorry.
We had 120 writers, ma'am. Out of which 50 Rahul statistics.
Yeah. The first year we had the focus on Malayalam literature.
No, your own also local.
No, they have.
Yeah. So I mean, at least 50% of our total numbers are Assamese and even Bodo and missing some of these languages, because representation and literature go together.
We had writers from Bihar, we had writers from Korea, we had from Kerala, we had from Delhi, we had from Mizoram, we had from Nagaland, we had from Meghalaya, we had from Arunachal. So out of the 120, ma'am, about 40 only were from the foreign countries, including Lithuania, Spain, France, but the rest were all from the other states of India. So it's very much there.
No, very much. The representation, I mean, we need to be conscious of it as well. I mean, these are design things. I mean, it's not that what we design that the regional is mainstream. In fact, Damodar was, Damodar was chairing that session in the first on regional is mainstream. First festival, yeah.
Strongly recommend, you already heard the dates. Assam is an amazing place, one of my favorite places in India. Of course, all the hills states that come from there are also amazing, but Assam, the Brahmaputra Valley is vast.
Wonderful people. Wonderful.
Yes, magnificent, and the best thing about it is the people. You've already heard the dates. There's a reason to go to Dibrugarh now for the Dibrugarh University International Literature Festival. Big hand for Rahul Jain, Dhruva Acharya, and our own Navanga Malgo. 2025 Literature Festival will end with Shakespeare and song. If you want a seat, I urge you to move there now. We're done. Okay. Please don't. This is your two homelands. Please don't miss the Shakespeare. Make sure that you come in. Let's take one quick photo with Damodar Malgo for Mama. Can I use your camera? Come. Would you mind taking this photo? Come forward. Please take.
Where is it? I have to do two works.
Come in the middle.
I saw your register among your books.
Please share with Mama. Who is here?
One, two, three.
Wait, don't miss your seat, huh? Because he will start on time. Yeah.
All the panelists have to have one photo.
Don't miss the concert.
Yeah. Are you going for the concert?
Andrea, I'll meet you there. Yeah.
I had to take all the papers from the man. Put water. So much paper inside of the it took me 2 hours. Night today I was cleaning it. See, all straight, cleaned everything. Yeah. So, you're going to the festival now? Which where?
In Dongri.
What? Drums or?
Yeah, Gumodela.
Enjoy.
I thought you lost.
Thank you so much.